Hello, my name is Mukura Rindadua. While I was a boarding high school student, I got malaria because it was so frequent there. My vitals were fine when I arrived at the hospital, but I was visibly weaker than when I had arrived. Doctors recommended conventional treatment at home after chemical medicines failed to improve my condition. Just 3 days after being released home, I became delusional. I went on a screaming binge that lasted all day and night. My parents were driving me back to the hospital when the car we were in broke down due to some technical troubles. Instead, I was escorted to a little clinic. Most of the time, I would just go on and on about whatever came to mind. Injecting sedatives into my veins put me to sleep. I fell asleep and never came back to consciousness. In my dream, a magnificent light was visible to me. I was able to alleviate my severe thirst after beholding a large tree adorned with a water bottle. I saw a hand bring the bottle down from the tree. "Drink," a voice instructed me. Like a vaccination drop, it revived me from head to toe as it slipped into my lips. I didn't use the entire bottle because I just needed a tiny bit. A number of things were made crystal obvious to me when it happened. On a ladder that reached from the ground up to the heavens, people were climbing from every corner of the globe. A lonely me stood before the shuttered heaven's gate. "Are you coming into heaven?" A man asked as he led me along the hall after that. After I said yes, he opened it for me, and I was ushered into paradise. I couldn't tell if the others had gotten ahead of me or if I had left them behind. I hold this view. The man who unlocked the gate had a plethora of keys in his grasp, extending from his fingertips to the back of his hand. He directed me to the precise room I needed to go into. Jesus Christ entered the room just as I had imagined. I was led to a seat by his side as I entered his office. A small table separated us. I will begin by saying, from the time of my earthly activities all the way up to my ascension to heaven, he began reading from a folder that included numerous documents. He closed the file and asked, "Do you agree that you did this while on earth?" For my part, I was fine with it. It felt as if I were a character in a movie or doing the action as I read it. It was too good to pass up. "A return to Earth is what I desire," he told me. "I need you to do an assignment. This area in heaven will be your permanent home once you finish it." After giving it some thought, I decided to stay put. This is what he said. "No, just go back." I wanted to stay this time, and I said it plainly. He pleaded with me gently to come back to Earth before I left heaven. The one thing I truly desired was bestowed upon me by him. I begged to be allowed to go to heaven, see the magnificence there, and then return to earth. As soon as I stepped inside paradise, I could hear the heavenly choir singing. Regardless of how tall someone was, they didn't stand out. Their enthusiasm shone through even without drums or other percussion. Feeling obligated to do so, I marched forward to join the chorus. However, I was unable to join due to an invisible but tremendous force. I broke down in tears and couldn't sing along with the angels at that same moment. My loved ones saw that I was crying, but no one at the hospital understood why. Following that, I made up my mind to learn more about the hereafter. On the other side of the choir was a beautiful location with a big chair, and someone was sitting in it. I would never amount to anything in the chorus because my singing abilities were never up to par. Jesus talked to me and invited me to come back as I walked around that beautiful paradise garden. After I gave him permission, he escorted me back to the gate via heaven, passing his office on the way. I was finally let out of heaven by the very man who had let me in earlier. He didn't ask me anything this time. As I stepped out, he closed the gate, and I started to down the ladder. While I was up there, I met another climber who was interested in the same things I was. I can't quite put my finger on what I looked like, but I do recall being a strong, active being who didn't need anything to sustain itself, including food, water, or clothes. Simply wonderful. The person passed away just minutes before I was to meet with them. Witnesses at the hospital told me afterwards that he had been in my room the whole time. Upon his inquiry, I told him what had happened in heaven. If I wanted to know what was going on with Earth, he would tell me to just open my eyes and look at it. It was disgusting and bewildering, he said. It was too sacrilegious to me to depart from the heavens. I told him that he could find acceptance in heaven throughout our talk. I told him I would sort it out when I got back to Earth when he asked me why I was heading there. After kissing him goodbye, I lowered myself on the ground. I viewed my body when I got to the area around the sick. 7 hours had passed since the doctor had declared me dead at 8 in the evening when I returned. I swore at my body as I stared at it, convinced that it was useless and not worth my time. Despite knowing I had to, I hesitated entering the corpse since it seemed meaningless. I had no choice but to enter the body. The exact motion of inserting my hand eludes me, but it felt like slipping it into a pocket. As my mental and bodily selves merged again, the doctor's words resounded that I had died. The neighborhood has heard word of my demise from all directions. A father had unfortunately lost his firstborn, therefore they were searching for a burial spot in the village. When I got back to my physical self, I moved about a little. As I reached out to my aunt, I welcomed her to the clinic where she had come to cry with me over my body. She broke the news to me that I was fine and well. Social workers and other anxious medical personnel swarmed into the room. I was taken aback when the doctor checked my vitals multiple times during the checkup. After he broke the news of my death earlier, he expressed his regret. Because I was so severely undernourished at the time, my skeleton was visible through my body, which was translucent. Because I was in such a bad place, I completely forgot that 15 days had passed. I went on a feeding frenzy and ended up spending more time there. They had to assist me in and out because I was reduced to a mere skeleton. I had visions about other things during that time as well, including the killing of innocent people for their crimes. My life was spared as the executioners prepared to behead me because an unidentified assailant recognized me and alerted them. There were a lot of casualties. The ones who had died for their sins were very important to me as I sat with those around me once I had gotten well enough to do so. A great deal of blood was spread out around the area. If I spoke out, my captors said I would bring chaos to their peaceful country. I had to explain to them that their deeds here are judged in heaven, and that this life is nothing compared to what awaits us once we die, because they still didn't believe me. After all these years, I still couldn't shake this strange fear. Seeking the will of the Lord, I sought direction. It was at this juncture that I should remember that I had been given explicit instructions to complete a mission on earth before returning to my everlasting home in heaven. Because the Lord called me late at night to preach the gospel and share the good news of the hereafter, I am still doing it. What follows is a narrative of a woman's meeting with Jesus following her fall from a precipice.